Hello, beautiful souls. Rana here. And today I wanted to make this video on what I believe is one of the most impactful spiritual books of our modern time. There are so many really powerful spiritual lessons in this book, so much so that I wanted to really break down and highlight a lot of the lessons that I learned and the lessons that I think most people can really benefit from learning and reading this book as well. So this book is called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. This is my copy. It's really, you could tell it's really worn, and I have highlighted and underlined so many passages in this book. So for those who are maybe unfamiliar with Eckhart Tolle, he is a spiritual teacher who's written a handful of really impactful spiritual books that have gone on to really impact the lives of so many people. So just a little bit about my personal background in reading this book and finding this book. I actually had initially stumbled across it in a used bookstore randomly several years ago, way back in 2018, after graduating from college. I think most college grads find themselves really lost and confused. There is a lot of, uncertainty as a post-grad with what your life should look like or could look like. And I definitely found myself in that boat. And I was in a used bookstore and I randomly found this copy and I read it really quickly. And it really, really impacted my life so much that I love teaching others about the main premise of this book and how you can use many of the messages and teachings to improve your life. So let's get into it. I have organized this into 9 spiritual lessons that I have gained from this book. Of course, there are probably so many more, but these are kind of like the 9 key takeaways from this book that I wanted to share with you all. The first is going to be, of course, the importance of presence and embracing the present moment and really making it into your ally and into your friend instead of your enemy, which most people actually are unconsciously doing. So many of us are unconsciously making the present moment into our enemy, thinking that the next moment is always going to be something greater or better or what have you. And he definitely highlights this concept the most in his original book, The Power of Now, which is also an incredibly powerful spiritual book as well. That also, has really gone on to impact the lives of many. But that theme of the present moment is also very regularly highlighted in this book as well. And of course, this is just such a central theme to so many spiritual teachings, really emphasizing the power of the present moment, which is really what meditation is. It's not always sitting with your eyes closed in, conventional sense. It really is just embracing the present moment and really truly being here now, as Ram Dass says. So that is one of the key lessons in this book, is to embrace the present moment and, again, turn it into your friend rather than your enemy. And the next lesson is one of the most kind of central themes in this book, and that is to disidentify from the ego and just overall really understand what the ego is and how problematic it really is. And he gives a lot of practical, tangible tools and methods on how to actually go about disidentifying from the ego mind and just overall really understanding what that even is. Because again, for so many of us, it's very unconscious. So he talks a lot about what the ego is and how problematic it is really for all of us collectively as a humanity and how much suffering the ego causes in the first place. So the second lesson is just about the importance of understanding the ego mind and understanding all of the problems that it creates. And in doing so, we can connect with a deeper and more authentic aspect of ourselves. And the next really powerful lesson in this book that I think, again, a lot of people can really benefit from understanding the importance of, and that's the illusion of materialism. You know, the illusion of this kind of 3D matrix Maya world that we live in, and how so much of, you know, just like physical reality can actually also cause so much of our suffering when we attach ourselves to it and identify ourselves with physical objects. So one example in particular he gave is when he said he used to work with a lot of clients when he kind of did counseling work back in the day at the beginning of his journey as a spiritual teacher. So he was working with this woman who believed that she had lost this really valuable ring. And she was identifying herself with this, what she believed was a very valuable object. And that's why she was really devastated that she couldn't find it. And he was basically asking her, do you feel any less than now that the ring is no longer here? You know, if you can disidentify yourself from that ring, can you realize the kind of source beneath it all? And can you feel that sense of I amness beneath what this kind of just physical object is? And he asked her, has who you are become diminished by the loss of it? So he would ask her a lot of these questions, and it really helped guide her to understand that beneath all of it, there is a center within each of us that really is able to transcend this physical world and the illusion, again, of materialism, which is what so many of us tend to identify ourselves with. You know, our house, our car, our just physical possessions that, especially in the Western world, we derive so much of our value from. And the next lesson, and actually one of my favorite lessons, is going to be the overall concept on breaking the cycle of constant unhappiness. So what does this mean? So many of us, again, I had made a video on what the pain body and what that entails, but so many of us are constantly in this trap of unhappiness, you know, constantly feeling like we're not enough, that we need to be doing more. And he gives this really interesting, I guess you could call it a method to determine whether or not you are in a space and in a position of doing something that might be causing you unhappiness, and basically how to go about removing yourself from the situation. So he explains that the modalities of awakened doing are going to be 3 things, and that's going to be acceptance, enjoyment, and enthusiasm. And so in a new earth, right, in a conscious world, which is what the book is all about, it's really important for humanity as a whole to make sure that they're either, whatever it is they're doing, it could be anything from something as simple as washing the dishes to actually working, you know, at your job or walking your pet, anything. And that's going to be the importance of either accepting that task, enjoying it, or feeling enthusiastic about it. It has to be one of those 3 things. And if it's not any of those things, and you can't find yourself either accepting, enjoying, or feeling enthusiastic about whatever it is you're physically doing, then you basically need to remove yourself from the situation, because it's going to cause a lot of unhappiness. And if you're not either accepting, enjoying, or feeling enthusiastic about something, you're going to be unconsciously creating a lot of suffering, not just for yourself, but for others as well, other people around you, and really humanity as a whole. So that's why it's really important to follow this kind of framework and structure when it comes to doing anything in life. And I always try and follow this too. I think this little lesson of, again, the 3 modalities of awakened doing has really impacted my life and has actually allowed me to remove myself from so many situations that, again, that unconsciously were really harming me and I didn't realize they were. And once I changed that, life just became so much better for me. It really did. So I highly encourage you all to adopt this and let me know how it goes. The next is going to be the importance of conscious relationships. So this is so key for anyone on a spiritual journey. You know, we as humans, we are, of course, social creatures and we need one another. But within that, it is so important to really pay attention to the kind of people that you're surrounding yourself with. Because as we often hear so often in the self-development community in general, not even necessarily within the spiritual community, but you always hear that narrative of you're the most like the 5 people you surround yourself with and whatnot. And so this is kind of follows the same principle and idea, is the importance of keeping and maintaining conscious relationships, because this is going to really shape who you are as an individual and really affect the spiritual progress you make or the lack thereof, right? And so keeping conscious relationships, forming relationships with other like-minded, conscious, spiritual individuals. They don't, of course, have to be really spiritual, but people who are more conscious is going to be really important. And understanding when you need to remove yourself from situations or end certain relationships when they're no longer serving you and are a hindrance to your spiritual development. And he actually even says in a certain part of the book that when you are on this path of spiritual awakening, you might even notice that some relationships will change in your life. I think that's something that I really noticed myself when I was at the beginning of my journey. And I hear countless other clients and even just other people in my life, other friends tell me that they've noticed this too, that they've had to change a lot of relationships in their lives. Maybe even their romantic relationship changes, certain friendships might end when they realize that they're no longer aligned with that person, and maybe some of the things that they were doing with the other person were unconscious. And now that they are more conscious, they are choosing to better their lives and improve their lives. And those people might have to fall away, as sad as it sounds. But then, of course, you are now able to bring in new, more conscious relationships in your life. And of course, piggybacking off of this theme is just overall seeing yourself in other people. We really are all one. This is the concept that Sanatana Dharma really preaches, and that's the concept of oneness, of really seeing yourself in others. And another one of my all-time favorite lessons, and one that really helped me very much, was this concept of embracing uncertainty and really leaning into that as a form of almost an ally that you might have on the spiritual path. I know it's one of those things that initially might seem like, how can I be okay with not knowing what's going to happen? But again, going back to the first lesson, and that's that the ego creates so much suffering in our lives. And it's just one of those things that the ego mind constantly has to be in control and be aware of everything that's happening. And when we really break down that the barriers of the ego and disidentify ourselves from the ego mind, we then are kind of thrust into this world of unknown, of just really not knowing what's going to happen, especially again once you remove yourself from harmful situations with the 3 modalities of awakened doing, and you remove yourself from unhealthy, unconscious relationships. You realize that so much of your life changes and you're kind of stuck. Sometimes you almost feel like you were just dropped off in a desert or something, and you're just looking around like, what am I supposed to do now? And it just feels really confusing. But he actually says that uncertainty is something you should really lean into and honor, and how it's definitely not always a bad thing, and how, if anything, the unknown can be actually a very beautiful thing. So just a little quote here. He says, when you become comfortable with uncertainty, infinite possibilities open up in your life. It means fear is no longer a dominant factor in what you do and no longer prevents you from taking action to initiate change. So, I just love this message, this overall concept of really embracing uncertainty and realizing that when you lean into it, then that's how you know that fear and the ego mind is no longer taking control of your life, which is such an incredibly powerful thing, and really is how you know that you are making progress on the spiritual path. And the 7th lesson is going to be awakening to higher consciousness. So again, kind of piggybacking off of some of the other lessons, this is just going to be the lesson of understanding that your divine purpose, as cheesy and cliche as it might sound, is really just to awaken. And when we awaken to higher consciousness, we realize that as much as the ego might not like it, everything is unfolding as it should be. And we don't always have to constantly cognize and understand in our thinking minds what's unfolding. When we really trust in the divine, the capital D divine, and really put our trust in the grand scheme of things, the grand picture, the divine source of all that is. And when we are on the path of divine union, then really you can never be led astray. There is this Zen saying that says, "The snow falls, each flake in its appropriate place." We can never understand this higher order through thinking about it, because whatever we think about is content, whereas the higher order emanates from the formless realm of consciousness, from universal intelligence. But we can glimpse it, and more than that, align ourselves with it, which means to be conscious participants in the unfolding of that higher purpose. So again, even when we have these chaotic moments in our lives and we can't really always understand why this is happening, it's just always important to put your trust and faith in the grand scheme of things, whatever you want to call it, in the universe and in higher powers, and just really trusting your path, trusting the progress you are already making and how much it's contributing to your well-being. He gives this example too of how one way that you can look at it is, when oftentimes we go to like a park, like a man-made park with manicured lawns and benches and, perfect flowers and all the things, we sometimes can feel really calm in a way and like more at peace, because the ego mind rationalizes things as kind of being how they should be and being where they are. But if we were maybe to go to like a forest, which is actually the natural kind of landscape of Earth, that's how things normally look without human intervention, and stuff is all over the place and sounds are all over the place and all that, it's kind of sometimes difficult for the ego mind to rationalize that, because it's constantly wanting to think about things and cognize things and think about what should be or what could be, and this is going wrong and this and that, because it almost seems like it's a form of chaos to the ego mind. But in reality, it's the opposite, where that's kind of more natural ways of living. But because we are in a society where we have been so removed from that in so many ways, and of course that's just an example, a small scale example, it's hard, so don't kind of beat yourself up when you can't immediately, when you feel like you can't immediately awaken or break free from the ego mind, because we truly are all conditioned and programmed to live this way and to think this way. This is what Bruce Lipton talks about a lot. The 8th lesson is going to be service to others. So this is a really beautiful lesson that's often taught in the yogic traditions. It's what's known as seva, doing your seva and serving others as a means to understanding the bigger picture of life, which honestly is to help others, because again, we're all connected. And one of my favorite quotes actually from Wayne Dyer, when he was asked about finding purpose and how can we go about finding our purpose, and he said something very beautiful, which was to give it to others. So when you're really struggling in your life and really trying to understand what your purpose is, he just said simply to give it to others. And actually, Eckhart has this quote that says, whatever you think people are withholding from you, praise, appreciation, assistance, loving care, and so on, give it to them. If you don't have it, just act as if you had it and it will come. Then soon after you start giving, you will start receiving. You cannot receive what you don't give. Outflow determines inflow. Whatever you think the world is withholding from you, you already have. But unless you allow it to flow out, you won't even know that you have it. This includes abundance. So again, this is actually something that one of my own personal mentors and teachers taught me. And, if you want to use the example of finances and money, if you feel like maybe you are lacking in that department, you don't have to give in the traditional sense of the terms of money. There are other ways to add value to other people's lives and to give to others and to serve others without it being monetary. It can be something so simple like helping your neighbor out with something. And actually, interestingly enough, science has even gone on to understand that so much of loneliness, we often hear that we're living in a loneliness epidemic and whatnot. Well, one of the ways that modern research has found that can, of course, it doesn't completely eliminate it, but it might soothe the feeling in the moment. One of the ways that we can help kind of alleviate symptoms of loneliness is by going out and helping someone with something. There's actually scientific research to support it. So I think this lesson is really powerful and really beautiful. And again, ultimately reminds us of our connection with others and connection with really all that exists, with all of life forms. We truly are all one. And the last lesson I have for you all today is going to be finding your inner and outer purpose. So, this is the title of the book, A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. But essentially, understanding what inner and outer purpose even means is really important. So he says that your inner purpose essentially is all of this. So it's just to awaken. And how do we do that? How do we awaken? Well, it's through all of these modalities and through conscious living. It's through everything he teaches. That is how we find our inner purpose. And ultimately, our inner purpose is to live this way. It's to live consciously. It's to awaken. And it's to show others how to awaken. And that's how we can collectively raise the overall consciousness of humanity. So your inner purpose is just as simple as that. It's just to awaken. And your outer purpose, and this is something that through the 3 modalities of awaken doing, we can kind of help us understand what it is that we kind of should be doing. But your outer purpose is essentially whatever you're doing out here. So it's whatever you're doing in the kind of 3D world, whatever you want to call it. But it's anything like that you're physically doing. So any task, anything, that's your outer purpose. And through, again, your outer purpose, you can ask yourself if you are actually implementing the 3 modalities of awaken doing. And that can really help you better tune into and understand how to find the inner purpose better, how to awaken better. So the 2 really go hand in hand. And the key is to align the outer purpose with the inner purpose while really realizing that, again, the inner purpose is really just to awaken. It's not actually this really big, complicated thing. So those were some really powerful lessons that I gained from this book. Of course, I'm sure there are so many more. I love reading this book. I constantly find myself returning to it time to time. And I have read so many spiritual books, so I think that's really saying something. I highly encourage all of you to read this book. It's such a powerful book that I think so many people, again, can really, really benefit from reading. It has the potential to really elevate the overall consciousness of humanity. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll talk with you all soon. Bye.